Hey guys, what's up? This is HDL, and this is the first in a series of videos I'm going to be making about mechanics in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This video is going to be about spin dashing, because I think it's the most important general technique that people need to understand in order to actually speed run this game properly. Um, and a lot of people do wind up losing a lot of time from their spin dashes for a variety of reasons, which I'll be covering here. So we have our handy Lua script here, shows us some cool information. Um, Specifically, we want to pay attention to the bottom left corner. In the very middle of that rectangle, there are some numbers. They say +0 right now. That'll be our horizontal speed, so we can use that to compare. So first, I want to show when you enter rev state, you look at the top left, it starts off at 0%. So one input gives you no charge speed whatsoever. Takes additional inputs to actually build up speed, and each input has to be a different button. It cannot be the same button. So for second input, we'll get 25% speed there. Third input, 49. Fourth input, 72. Fifth, 95. And the last one, 6. Will be 100%. And that's why we call this the 6 tap, because it takes a minimum of 6 button presses to build up 100% speed. If we let this rock, if you look at the bottom left, right in the middle, it'll say 3066. That's the maximum speed you can get. That is from a perfect spin dash. The fatal flaw with this method is inevitably in real time. If you look at the bottom right side, you can see my inputs. And if you look at the top left, you can see that as time goes by, we just lose speed, and you lose speed rather quickly, actually. The fatal flaw is that we're not going to necessarily get frame perfect 6 taps. There will be frame gaps in between each button press, and you will be losing speed during those frames. So you're not necessarily going to charge up 100% speed as a given. That's why I use something called the 7 tap, but I'll get to that in a bit. First, I want to show off what happens when you jump and release at the same time. And I'm playing on emulator right now. Lua script is actually making it kind of slow. Um, there we go. So that's what we call a straight jump, and most of the time, it's a mistake. There are some exceptions where it can actually help you, but most of the time, you do not want that. So again, if you press a button input on the same frame that you release your spin dash, you will get a straight jump. And that's why we want to actually insert some frames before we release the spin dash. So if we do a normal 6 tap, if you look at the bottom right side, I'm doing what's called a piano roll technique. I just basically piano 3 buttons and then piano the 3 buttons again, and I try and do that quickly to build up 100% speed. Once we do that, we actually want to just give a short delay before we release. And you can see it says 85%. Normally it's going to be, if you get a really good charge, it's going to be around 80 something, maybe in the 70s by the time you actually get your release. So if we do that again, let's release, and we get on the bottom left, it says 2682, which is our takeoff speed, as opposed to the 3066. So that's actually quite a significant drop. I'm going to explain how to mitigate this in a bit, but just one quick thing I want to cover, and that's actually why I'm here in Hidden Palace, is actually how to maintain your speed. Because when you roll on the ground, you just naturally decelerate. And that's not good for speedrunning, especially since you don't really have control over your character. When you roll jump naturally, you don't have any kind of horizontal control unless you use your aerial ability. And if you do that, you wind up losing a ton of speed. So what we want to do is actually just jump. And if you look at the bottom left, once we break into our run animation, we actually just maintain the whole speed on flat ground. So that's how you maintain your spin dash speed. Basically, whenever possible, you want to be able to smoothly transition from your roll into a run, either by bumping into a ceiling or by, spin dashing off a ledge, onto a platform, things like that. Um, Next, I'm going to talk about my method, which is the 7 tap. This is the one that I've been championing for quite a while. Um, I developed this technique first on controller, and I have a couple methods for that. And now I play on arcade stick, so I have my method for that. And you can use these on any kind of controller and keyboard as well. So the idea behind the 7 tap, if you look on the bottom right at my inputs, that's the 6 tap. That's what it looks like. It's just basically piano rolling twice. That's what the 7 tap looks like. It looks kind of weird, but the whole principle behind the 7 tap is since we have frame gaps in between our button presses that cause us to lose speed, we're not necessarily going to charge up 100% speed on our spin dash if we use only 6 inputs. However, inserting a 7th input will guarantee that we build up 100% speed. Your actual spin dash speed is still going to depend on when you release the spin dash, but at least with the 7 tap, you can be sure that you'll always build up 100% speed no matter what. So your top speed is always going to be the optimal value. So in general, if I do a 7 tap and then jump, if you look on the bottom left, it's 2932. Um, and that's actually kind of low. I'm playing on emulator, so there is some input delay here that I'm not really too used to. You can see I'm like averaging that amount. Oh, that was terrible. There we go. Over 3000 is really what you typically get if you do it well. 3048, which is very close to 3066, which is the maximum. Anything that's like 2900 and above is generally very fast. 3048 again. Now, if I compare with the 6 tap, I got 2798, 2408, 2786. That one was good. 2652. So you can see, there are times when you can get decent speed like the 2900, but in general, it's going to say like 2700 or lower. There's a 2900 again. There's another one. So it's not that you can't get fast speeds with the 6 tap. It's just that the 7 tap, look at that, 3060. The 7 tap is just much more likely to give you good speed. So now I want to talk about the actual physical techniques for performing these. First, we're going to start with the 6 tap because that's just much simpler to get used to. And then once you're comfortable with that, you can play around with 7 tap and try and get comfortable with that. So if you are playing on a controller using your thumb, all right, so what you want to do is you actually want to just roll it in one direction twice. So let's say you usually jump with the A button, so your thumb is hovering over the A button. You can press ABC, ABC. So you just roll your thumb over the buttons and then roll it ABC again over the buttons a second time. Um, if you are using like the overhand, like arcade style, where you're using 3 different fingers for each button, you can just roll CBA, which is actually what I was showing here with the arcade stick, CBA, and then just do CBA a second time and then release. That's for the 6-tap. You can use this on arcade stick and keyboard as well. Um, and that's pretty much the 6-tap. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just like make sure you get the inputs on different frames. If they're on the same frame, the game will not count them as separate inputs. As for the the 7-tap method, what you want to do if you're using your thumb on a controller, this is what I used to do. Um, you'll roll your thumb from A to C, so A, B, C, and then roll it back in the other direction, B, A, and then roll it again, B, C. So again, it's A, B, C, B, A, B, C. That's what I used for a long time, and I got some very consistently fast spin dashes like that on controller, using the thumb method. If you use arcade style, so 3 fingers for each button, it gets a little bit trickier here because simply mashing repeatedly and hoping you get 7 inputs is not good. You'll very often lose speed, or you'll get straight jumps accidentally, or you'll spend too much time revving. Um, so what you can do is just press one input first to start your rev, and then do a 6-tap. That way, since you don't gain any speed from getting into rev state, you can basically use one input for the rev state and then use 6 inputs for speed building. Um, so again, that works for controller if you're using 3 fingers, as well as arcade stick and keyboard. Um, and lastly, the slide method, which is what I use. The slide method works phenomenally on arcade sticks, particularly with buttons that actuate very quickly and have low resistance. So I basically slide one finger from C to A, and I just go back and forth. So it's CBA, BC, BA. Basically the opposite of what I used to do on controller with my thumb. I just do the opposite order for the buttons. The benefit to this method is that it dramatically reduces the rev time. So you're spending less time in your rev state, which means you can take off sooner. And over the course of a run, you wind up saving a lot of time by not staying in your rev state for too long. You can very easily save, several seconds per level just from not revving a long time. Um, so that is basically spin dashing in a nutshell. Um, I'm not gonna cover anything like slope jumps or anything like that in this video. Um, it's just making sure you understand the principles of spin dashing, the speeds you can get, the 2 different methods for 6-tap and 7-tap. You got your piano roll technique, your piano slide. Um, make sure you insert a delay after your last button press, otherwise you'll get a straight jump. And yeah, that's pretty much spin dashing in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So if you have any questions, I know it's kind of a lot to take in. Um, I've just been sitting here explaining detail after detail. If you're still confused, feel free to reach out to me. I will break it down further if you need some more help. But yes, it is actually quite an involved technique. Um, but once you familiarize yourself with it and also the methods for executing it, you will you'll just get way better times, and you'll actually enjoy the game more just because you know that your spin dashes are like on point. So yeah, that's it, and have a good one, guys.